So you expect two hockey teams maybe to get in a fight on the ice, leaving maybe one or two athletes bloodied. But at water polo? Well, the 1956 Olympics led to what was called the blood in the water match, and it was basically majority over the fact that Hungary was involved in a revolution that year against their overlords, what was at the time USSR. Now, the blood in the water match was a water polo contest between Hungary and USSR at the 56 Melbourne Olympics. The match took place on December 6th against the backdrop of the 56 Hungarian Revolution and saw Hungary defeated the USSR 4-0. The name was coined after a Hungarian player, Ervin Zador, emerged during the last 2 minutes with blood pouring from above his eye after being punched by Soviet player Valentin Prokopov. Tensions were at an all-time high between the competing teams. The Soviet military had violently suppressed the Hungarian Revolution just weeks before. Most of the revolutionaries consisted of civilians, a majority factor workers and students, who constructed Molotov cocktails against enormous military power that was the USSR. Now, throughout the match, players would use any form of violence they could manage whenever the players of opposing teams came in contact. Zador's injury took place in the closing minutes of the contests. Chaos erupted when the crowd booed the Russians. Ultimately, Hungary won with a score of 4-0. There was some question if the fans were going to rush the pool and kill the Russians. That was talked about later on, but nothing to that level happened, but it was pretty tense. Now, when he said tensions were already high between the Hungarian and Soviet water polo teams, the Soviets had taken advantage of their full control of Hungary to study and copy the training methods and tactics of the Olympic champion Hungarians. On October 23, 1956, a demonstration by students at the Budapest University of Technology and Economics escalated into an uprising against the government in Budapest. On 1st of November, Soviet tanks began rolling into Hungary, and from 4th to 10th November, forces began suppressing the uprising with airstrikes, artillery bombardments, and tank infantry actions. Now, at the time, the Hungarian water polo team was in a mountain training camp above Budapest. They were able to hear the gunfire and see smoke rising. The players were the defending Olympic champions. With the Summer Olympics in Melbourne 2 months away, they were moved into Czechoslovakia to avoid being caught in a revolution. The players only learned of the true extent of the uprising and the subsequent crackdown after arriving in Australia, and were all anxious for news of friends and family. Now, by the start of the Olympics, the uprising had been suppressed, and many players saw the Olympics as a way to salvage pride for their country. We felt we were playing not just for ourselves, but for our whole country, said Zador after the match. The contest was played in front of a partisan crowd, bolstered with expatriate Hungarians, as well as Australians and Americans, two of the Soviet Union's Cold War opponents. Now, the Hungarians had created a strategy before the game to taunt the Russians, whose language they had studied in school. In the words of Zador, we had decided to try to make the Russians angry to distract them. Now, Zador's incident, this is what happened. A whistle came. I looked at the referee. I said, "What's the whistle for?" And the moment I did that, I knew I made a horrible mistake. I turned back, and with a straight iron, he just smacked me in the face. He tried to punch me out. I saw about 4,000 stars, and I reached for my face, and I felt warm blood pouring down. And he instantly said, "Oh my God, I won't be able to play the next game." Now, from the beginning of this match, kicks and punches were exchanged. At one point, a punch thrown by Hungarian captain Dezo Giramati was caught on film. Meanwhile, Zador scored 2 goals to the crowd's cheers of "Go Hungarians!" Hashara Makerak. With 1 minute remaining in the match, again Hungary was leading dominantly 4-0. Zador was making Valentin Prokopov, with whom he already exchanged words, was marking Prokopov, and a whistle was blown. In the intermission, Prokopov struck him, causing a bleeding gash. When Zador left the pool, his bleeding was the final straw for a crowd already in a frenzy. Many angry spectators jumped onto the concourse beside the water, shook their fists, shouted abuse, and spat at the Russians. To avoid a riot, police entered the arena and shepherded the crowd away. Now, pictures of Zador's injuries were published around the world, leading to the infamous blood in the water moniker. Reports that the water in the pool turned red, however, were an exaggeration. Zador said his only thought was whether he would be able to play the next contest. Now, when the referee stopped the match, Hungary was declared the winner since he had been leading. Hungary then bet Yugoslavia 2-1, which was another Russian protector at the time, in the final to win their 4th Olympic gold medal. Zador's injury forced him to miss the match. After the event was completed, he and some of his teammates defected to the West. Now, in 2006, for the 50th anniversary of the attempted Hungarian Revolution, the documentary Freedom's Fury, produced by Christine Lacey and Tora Halvorsen, told the story of the match. Quentin Tarantino described it as the best untold story ever. The documentary was narrated by all people. Olympic swimmer Mark Spitz was a teenager who had been coached by Zador. Also in 2006, a feature film about the match was released entitled Children of Glory, meeting Spasbag Zazlem, meeting Freedom Love after the lines of Sandor Podolfi, the martyr poet of the 1848-49 revolution. The movie shows the Hungarian Revolution through the eyes of a player in a water polo team and a young woman who was one of the student leaders. It was directed by Kristina Goda and produced by Andrew G. Vajna. The movie appeared in Hungarian cinemas on October 23, 2006, the 50th anniversary of the revolution. On October 29, 2006, it was shown at the White House for George Bush and guests including Hungarian-American figures such as George Pataki, Governor of New York, and George A. Olah, Nobel Prize winner. The incident itself featured in the 1978 Australian film News Front. Now, growing up, it was talked about a lot through the years. I don't know if Bud Greenspan did a feature on it, but this was kind of freaky, ladies and gentlemen. And by 1972, when the Russians were trying to cheat us in the Summit Series by, picking their own referees, I don't think it was expected in Australia that the Hungarians would have so much for support. But you got to understand what happened in Czechoslovakia in '68. Different uprising against the Russians, or what they call the USSR, were getting more and more prominent. Usually in the factors of sport, when a team was very good against the Russians and the Russians tried to cheat, they did that in basketball towards the Americans. They did that in gymnastics. They did it in certain of the combat sports. But the USSR at the time, they weren't as much into the drug culture, the sport culture like there is in 2024. They would do anything to intimidate or try to get away with certain things. But you can understand with water polo, ladies and gentlemen, basically some very, very physically intense play, some strong young men. You put them in a pool together and stir and repeat. There's going to be trouble. Now, what's kind of ironic, ladies and gentlemen, at the time, the Russians were just back in the Olympics. I think 1948 or something, after the Second World War. So this was unexpected that something like this was going to happen. It was a perfect storm of anger and politics and competition at the same time. But if you want to check out that Australian documentary, it's quite good. It should be taught in school that the fact is you never underestimate what your opponent may try to do. So that's the big case of the blood in the water incident. If you like what we're doing here, we're Olympic History Podcast. Let us know with a like, comment, subscribe, or share. Bye.